Well, Accuris Networks, our solutions is around Wi-Fi offload. So being able to allow a mobile operator to integrate their network with Wi-Fi networks. So what we provide is an easy way for their users to attach themselves to a Wi-Fi network, but at the same time authenticate them on the mobile network. So it uses the SIM cards in the mobile phone to authenticate the subscriber on a Wi-Fi network. And then they're able to continue getting their data services on Wi-Fi or other services as well. So we extend all of their mobile services onto Wi-Fi so they can get their voice calls, their messaging calls.
Network congestion and network patterns generally follow traffic patterns very similar to commute patterns in the US and Europe. So if you take a look at peak data throughout the day, you have a tremendous amount of underutilized bandwidth. So we're working on a new initiative with a coalition of industry partners like SoftBank, Orange, Sony Pictures, to work on a new system to create a standard to utilize that underutilized bandwidth and leverage the incredible amount of overnight or middle of the day underutilized bandwidth to deliver data in a predictive fashion and store it locally on a cache. So essentially, very much like a CDN would push content out to the edge of the network, we essentially turn any device into a part of that delivery system where we use flash and leverage the local storage, which can store and cache information, whether that be video or episodic television, and things that you generally are consuming on a regular basis. A lot of that can be built into an application layer that would predictively pull the information that you're interested in. If we know that you read RCR Wireless every morning at 7 o'clock in the morning, we can pull all of the headlines and store it locally on your device and make that available to you when network congestion would be ordinarily very difficult to access over 3G. So we're going to do that by leveraging Wi-Fi. We're going to be doing that by leveraging off-peak data downloads and essentially building an application layer with development partners that would essentially standardize that across the industry.
There's a certain alignment, I think, with the conversation we're having, in that we look at things from a base station perspective.
Right.
So what we found out about 4 years ago in remote parts of the world was that there was a certain consistency in the information and the data profile that was being required by particular individuals within communities, remote enterprises. So we started to build what we call intelligence at the edge of the network. So we had an ability at the base station level to start to make decisions that would typically be made at the core of the network. But we've done it in such a way that we don't affect the overall management of the network, because the operators love to have a network that isn't touched from an operation and maintenance perspective. So they don't like, for example, putting lots of soft switches in. So what we decided to do is introduce a layer of intelligence at the base station, and by doing so, and actually introducing layers of the core of the network out there, we were able to make very smart decisions early. So for example, if we go back to the analogy of the YouTube portion, what we would do is we would be able to cache locally at the base station. And by caching locally at the base station, well, that YouTube piece comes in once. It's cached locally, and all the people in that community or that remote enterprise that are accessing that particular piece of information are getting it pretty much for free. Because from the radio on the base station to the handset, that's pretty much free of charge. It's the backhaul part that's the tough part.
I mean, we all have different solutions for addressing data congestion, but the reality is mobile operators are going to have to deploy all the methods, or depending on their on their particular business, a mixture of them. They're deploying LTE, 4G networks as well, but that doesn't necessarily address the data growth problems either. There's only so much data can be delivered of that, so it's still going to need clever caching in the networks. We think Wi-Fi as well. It makes sense in particular cases as well. But a lot of it goes back to how the operators architect those networks and policy control, how the policies are managed within a network as well. So how they make decisions of how a particular subscriber gets their data and what should be done with it. So they can make clever decisions in their networks to get the best use of the resources that they do have, the radio resources, Wi-Fi resources and so on.
We understood very clearly that to solve this problem, we would need a large coalition of every part of the ecosystem. Handset manufacturers need to build the intelligence into the way that they're designing their OS layers. Network operators need to use their towers efficiently and look at backhaul and look at network signaling to tell an application, hey, I've got plenty of bandwidth right now, I'm going to send you more data than I normally would. We need to use local Wi-Fi substations to obviously access that incredible amount of bandwidth that doesn't affect the cellular network when Wi-Fi is available. And we will assign our own resources to essentially optimize SDKs and tools for accessing the flash most successfully. But our approach is essentially to be a catalyst for all areas of the ecosystem, who typically are all our customers, to help them work together to manage this process together. So within that steering committee, we have content providers like Sony Pictures who understand this is critical to them delivering HD content in the future, and we have network operators, and we expect some handset manufacturers to be heavily involved in the effort as well.
Altobridge is a privately owned company. Recently we just closed a round of funding with Intel Capital and the IFC, which is part of the World Bank. And the idea behind all of this initiative is to take the 130 people that we have today, the majority of them are already working on this because we've had a couple of years under our belt, working with those partners, in particular people like Intel, that are doing an enormous amount in the context of intelligent routing and looking at that concept. And what we're saying, and I think very much consistent with my colleagues or my peers here, what we're saying is there's a lot of very smart intelligence already out there. Compression technology, data compression, caching, all of this is almost ancient. IP and the idea of moving data across IP networks, it's pretty mature now. So what we've done is we're looking at the best in breed. Right. And I think very consistently with yourself. And we're saying, let's bring them together. And what we found is by doing that, we've been able to take great mature technology, and then what we're doing is we're adding intelligence. Right. So we're saying it's the decision making that then becomes the intellectual property.